Hey, everybody. Dave Cooper, DaveCooper.live. Man, this is awesome. So we have Bruce Thompson on, CEO, founder of Urbaneer, known for the ADUs. Bruce, what's happening?
Good morning, Dave. Doing great. Live from the West Coast here, I should say, Redwood City, California.
Yeah, I know. My biggest mistake is I set everything up in the morning thinking everybody lives on the East Coast, right? So everybody has to get up a little earlier for my shows.
Hey, I'm still on East Coast time, so that's fine. We're from Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is East Coast. So I never switched over.
Right. Well, listen, thanks so much for taking time. I know you're a busy guy. We met out at the IBS in Las Vegas when you had your display ADU out there, which was amazing. And I'm really looking forward to finding out, where you went, where you came from, how you got there, where you're going, and all of those things. So listen, everybody, if you're just joining us now, please hit that like and share button, and I'll get my banner off the screen there that's still rolling at the bottom. And ask questions. Now's your time to ask questions from a leader in this industry, somebody who's driving modular construction to the next level, and you're doing that with some partnerships, which we'll get into in a minute. Listen, Bruce, did you just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to build modular ADUs and I'm going to take it to a national level? Like, how does that happen?
Well, it wasn't one morning. I think I woke up a lot of mornings thinking about this. So Urbaneer, just a little bit on the story, and usually I do the abridged version. You'll get a little bit of the Urbaneer Unplugged here, more of the backstory. But, my wife, Brenda, is the co-founder. She's the designer. I'm the innovator, and I spent 22 years in the tech industry. And I think any good innovator, you do wake up a lot of mornings thinking about, how to change the world, and you think about problems. At the end of the day, innovation is around problem solving. And in the tech industry, sometimes one of the challenges is people have great solutions and there's no problems that they're trying to solve. As you get into housing, we all know it's a massive problem. But again, back to how did we get here? It really was a series of events, and it really wasn't that one morning we did wake up, but it was really going back to, even when I was very young, I was fortunate to have a grandmother who would talk to me about how at 5 years old, I should have an antenna on my head in my life and always look for opportunities. She said, treat it like radar and just always be on the lookout for, what's ahead. And that's really what led me into the tech industry is, at that time, right out of graduate school, the internet was popping up and there was just a lot of software innovation. And I found myself working at MCI Telecommunications and was fortunate to be working with a man by the name of Vint Cerf, who actually wrote and developed the protocol for the internet, TCP/IP. And that was really my first big moment, I think, where I realized, okay, how and where we live is going to change massively in the future because of a whole lot of forces, many forces, but it was really the internet was going to be a big driver in it. So that was the late 90s, and Vint Cerf had a mantra back then, IP on everything, which I was always really catchy with the engineers. But his point was that the internet protocol was going to connect everything on Earth, for better or for worse, and our homes at some point would just become a big node on the internet. So I started thinking about that, and soon after, Brenda and I and our two young boys at the time moved to Barcelona, Spain, and we found ourselves in a 900 square foot apartment. And that was really kind of the second moment where the wheels started turning in my head, and Brenda got exposed to all the great design, architecture, and art, famous artists in Barcelona, and kind of discovered her passion for interior design. But for, I think, both of us living in a 900 square foot apartment after several large homes, it really started to dawn on us that there might be something to that lifestyle, not having to take care of a house, maintain it, being able to go drive to France for the weekend. We would do that, not have to mow the lawn. And so that was another big moment in our lives. And as we came back to the U.S. and several large homes later, in 2012, that was really, I think, the moment where Brenda one night said, I just want to get back to Barcelona. And you talked to her about that in Las Vegas. That was kind of a little bit of an epiphany moment where we thought, if we want to downsize our life and move into a smaller square footprint, but a lot of other people do, we started looking around and there just weren't a lot of great solutions. And there, when you look at a small space, as we do, you really have to imagine it from the inside out and think differently. And you have to really focus on the occupant experience. And for me, coming out of the tech world, that was what you always did. You always thought about the user interface, the occupant experience. You defined personas, how they would use an application. So that's how we started designing, and I'll land it there. But that was 2012 into the beginning of 2013, where we really decided to do this as a business.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I had so much fun interviewing with Brenda in the ADU in Las Vegas, right out in the lot. And that was great. And I have to tell you, she did tell us that story. And she was talking about when you came back and you just, well, we don't want all this yard work. We don't want, the to manage such a big, place to live. You guys really got used to how you were living overseas, if I recall, just like you were saying. So I think it's absolutely incredible. So, all right, you come back. How did you get your first start? How did you build your first unit?
Yeah. So again, series of events that kind of led us up to another epiphany I'll talk about in a minute, which was 3 years ago. But as we migrated back to Michigan, so, thinking about our time together, 35 years, next month is our anniversary. We've moved 19 times, 5 states, 3 countries.
And you're still married and happy, it seems.
Still married, still happy. And we arrived in California to launch Urbaneer on the West Coast in the middle of March. And we went into lockdown out here. And I can just say I'm glad that we like each other, and that continues. So people, that might not be the case. So we're very fortunate. Just I could stop there for my life and figure that that's a life accomplishment. But no, but as we downsized ourselves. So we went from 5,000 square feet to what we live in today is an 800 square foot footprint home. Mm-hmm. And we have some space up downstairs and some downstairs. So we're about 1,100 square feet all in. But as we went through that process, coming out of the tech industry, I realized there was a major chunk of knowledge that I had to acquire. And so we partnered with a commercial construction company out of Grand Rapids, Michigan called Rockford Construction. And they build across the country, but they had a development division that focused on West Michigan, primarily Grand Rapids, Michigan, where we're based. And they were doing multifamily apartments at the time. So we really were able to have our first client, which was a huge gift. Because anytime as an innovator, it's a great thing to have ideas. It's a great thing to solve a problem. But if nobody's willing to pay for it, then you really haven't accomplished anything, right? If there's no value. So what we literally did is we took a warehouse space. We taped off the size of the apartment that they were going to be building. It was a 400 square foot apartment. And we started thinking, and I put a cross-functional team together. The thing I've learned about innovation is you want to get as many different viewpoints in as you can when you're thinking about problem solving, because again, a lot of times you can have a solution that doesn't have a problem. So we brought in property management discipline, construction, design, and I guess my background is tech innovator. And we literally taped off that space and we started thinking about how many different things have to happen in a small living space. And we came down to 5 things. It was cooking, dining, working, entertaining, and sleeping. And I guess you could add probably workout or now especially working at home is a really big thing, right? But thinking about those different living modes. And then we started to design with cardboard and plywood a reconfigurable interior. And that really became the basis of our first patent. And one of the things that came out of those sessions, and we met for about 6 weeks, once a week for an hour, and then we'd go off and do some work in between, then come back together and stand in that space. And we kept iterating and playing with it. But really one major thing that came out of that, and it's the second patent we have, which is the ability to create a movable wall that has power in it so that we can reconfigure space. And we showed a little bit of that in Las Vegas, but there's much more kind of behind the scenes that we're working on. So we did a couple projects, and I had a chance to go and sit and interview and have a glass of wine with some of the occupants and the residents. And the last thing I'll say, Dave, here on this point is that first project is I had another epiphany moment when I asked Mary, was her name, about how she liked living in an Urbaneer unit at the time. And this was 2014. And it was interesting because she spoke for 5 minutes about all the things in her life that space had enabled her to do in terms of walkability. She was in transition, going through a divorce, was recently single. She needed flexibility for bringing kids in and out of that space. And she had done a major downsize in her life. And then she talked about some of the features of what Urbaneer brought. But it was really that moment where I realized, okay, we were enabling a lifestyle around compact living. And that was really kind of the moment where I realized, okay, this isn't just about us and our problem. Again, there's a lot of people out there that are looking for solutions.
You know what? So the true entrepreneurial spirit, when I heard you say that in our warehouse, we were building prototypes out of cardboard and plywood. I want to make sure people understand that this isn't just something that you said, all right, we're going to slap a kitchen here and, have this over here. You've put a ton of thought into this, and that's where your success is coming from, because it is well thought out. And the fact that you took the time to sit down with people that are living in your products and truly just ask them, what do you like? What do you don't like? I think is an amazing thing. And more people should pay attention and do the same thing. What do you think?
I totally agree. I mean, I think so often when we think about innovation and even when we think about housing, the person that's going to live in that space is, the last person that people, consider. And there's an old joke. I'm not an architect, but I have an architect friend. His old joke is, architecture would be great if you didn't have to worry about clients or structure, right? So a lot of times we view people as the problem in it, and that's who we should be solving for. And if I could just add to that too, Dave, there was more learnings, in the journey. And it really came a couple of years after that when we decided to build our own home. Mm-hmm. And Brenda really designed the space again from the inside out. And we incorporated all of our componentry to make that space live larger. And we've done tours of hundreds of people in that unit. But there were a couple of things that really stood out of that experience too. One is we controlled everything. We controlled the entire process. What I mean by that is we weren't given a floor plan. And so the first, to overlay our innovation capability, the first phase of our business, we did about 400 multifamily units with that partnership I mentioned with Rockford Construction. And again, demonstrated value prop. We showed that our approach, attracted people to a unit. They stayed there, it attracted them quicker. They stayed longer. They paid a little bit more per square foot. So all of that was there. But when we did our own house and we designed from the inside out around a floor plan that we created, we really took it to the next level. And that's what really triggered us to the next phase of our business, which we'll talk more about, is the single family home. But part of what Brenda brought into that experience too was a lot of the environmental psychology elements of a small living space. Things like light, color, sound, all of those go into the experience, back to the occupant experience and how you feel in a small space. And the last thing you want to do is make somebody feel claustrophobic, right? You want them to perceive the space to its maximum. So when you walked into that unit at IBS, for example, one of the first things you saw was the window backsplash. You saw through the unit and you saw light, really big thing. And then the volume of the space, all the colors. Brenda's the only person I know that could spend a whole afternoon in a paint store picking out a shade of white. To me, there's like 5 shades, but apparently it's not true. But all that personal learning, all the things that we've together over the years, that's really kind of the essence of Urbaneer. It's not just about a movable wall. It's just not about a small space. It's really downsizing without compromising and creating a better place for people to live.
Over and over again on this show, the one thing that I am learning about successful people in business, especially in the offsite construction business, is that they're passionate, right? It's something that you lived. It's something that you guys have went through. Not only did you go through it, but then you started designing in your own life how to bring these possibilities to fruition. And I think it's absolutely amazing. So like I said, this isn't just a business plan. This is something that you live and you've been breathing for years and years and years. And I think it's so important for people to understand that, people like yourself that are out there and you and your wife, and, it's funny, wife and husbands can be in business together. I'm proof of that as well, everybody. So I do think that people need to understand when you have a passion for something, you can do anything. And when you have a passion for something, sometimes a lot of other people have that same passion. They just don't know how to react to it. And I think what you're doing and what you guys put out there is all driven from a personal, emotional passion, which I think to the consumer is super, super important. It's a really important story to tell because it's not just a business plan for somebody. We really thought this out on behalf of you. And I love it. So
yeah, thank you. My joke always is, don't try this at home, right? Which was exactly We did, and innovation can be messy, and you have to update things, and it's a journey. But I think people do like it, and you touched on it. But when you're downsizing, it's kind of one of three forces are driving it. Can be economics, can be a period of life, or for others, it's just a lifestyle decision. But there's a lot of emotion that goes into that, and people are both excited and then again afraid of what does it mean, because it really is kind of contrary to what we've been taught, especially in this country, not so much others, that bigger is better, and that's what we should strive for. So we try to wrap all of that into our work.
Absolutely. So just what's all the different parts of Urbaneer? Are you still doing multifamily?
We do it on occasion. We have actually a project in New Jersey right now. We designed 26 units, work-live units around our capabilities. So we'll have the movable wall, the wall bed, storage, the wall table. We've got a project in Grand Rapids right now that's multi-unit. But predominantly, we're focused on single-family, off-site construction, and then dial that in another layer, the ADU space.
Sure. Okay. ADUs. That was the big thing that you were displaying out in Las Vegas at IBS. It's garnered you a lot of attention, and what you guys are doing in our industry. Tell us a little bit about your partnerships. Like you went from doing this yourself. Now you have some strategic partnerships, and they're not tiny ones. And there's factories being built. Let's hear it, man. I want to hear where you're at today, and then we're going to get into where you're going. And somehow I'm going to go down there and I'm going to walk through that Jersey project live with you.
That'd be great. Fantastic. And there's others. Yeah, that's the neck of the woods. Well, again, the points along the way, right, where your business evolves. So after doing the 400 multifamily units, doing our own home, we really started to think a lot more about single family construction, the frustration of personally building a home, site building a home, seeing dumpsters filled up with waste and some of the inefficiency. The end product was there, but it was just, it's site built construction is challenging and very archaic. And so we were fortunate, two events here. One was that got us to the next step. One was I sat with a gentleman, Jonathan Lawless at Fannie Mae a couple of years ago. And he really educated me about accessory dwelling units and looking at land in the backyard, which is essentially free, right? It's been paid for and can be put to a better use maybe for a lot of people. And he talked about the zoning that was changing in California, statewide zoning, but other municipalities, other cities opening up. But one thing he threw out is he said, there's really not a good national solution for that. And we started talking about, manufactured housing and modular and offsite. And that led me to, was very fortunate. I met an individual, Rich Flora in Elkhart, Indiana, former CEO of Skyline. They had merged with Champion. It became Skyline. And he introduced us at executive level to Skyline Champion. And we started talking about what Urbaneer could bring to their platform, which is just an amazing manufacturing platform, by far, a leader in this country and in North America, there in Western Canada as well. And it was just an amazing cultural fit. They respected what we were doing. And, it's challenging sometimes for a little company to work with a larger company, but it was just a really great fit. And I'll just say they took a chance on us and decided to feature us, as you saw at IBS. And we focused on the ADU as an application. We're not stopping there. There's other things that we're collaborating on, and our designs, make sense in a vacation setting or compact urban infill home, as well as they do in somebody's backyard. And we now have 4 floor plans. We have 3 more under development. We're actively in production in 3 plants across the U.S., Strattonville, Pennsylvania, Woodland, California, Corona, California. There's additional plants coming online, Worthington, Minnesota, York, Nebraska, potentially another plant in eastern Pennsylvania, and there'll be more. So it's exciting for us. And so it's an Urbaneer by Genesis branded unit that they're producing, those various floor plans I mentioned. And then it has our interior componentry of the wall bed and storage system. We have a sofa that can be integrated into that. We have our movable wall system, wall table, and then there's some elements of the kitchen design and integration that we brought to that partnership as well.
Right. I mean, that's amazing. So, I think it'd be a huge hit on the East Coast. I mean, that's where I'm at. You open that plant in PA. ADUs, or as we call them, in-law apartments or in-law suites that people can.
There's no great name, unfortunately. We industry to work on that.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, it's a big deal, and a lot of people are doing it now. And I know, during my building time, it's something that we always were asked if we could do for our parents or for kids coming back from school that don't have a job, whatever the case is. So, listen, everybody, if you're just joining us, we are on live with Bruce Thompson, CEO, founder of Urbaneer. And I can't just say Bruce, it's his wife, Brenda, as well. So Bruce and Brenda, unfortunately, Brenda's not on this call, but we did feature her out in Las Vegas, which was great. And I'm so happy for that. So we got some people commenting. Bruce, why don't we just do a couple comments? Then we're going to get a little bit further into the partnerships that you have and what you see the future. Okay. All right. So we got Jerry McCullough says, morning, Dave. All right. Morning, Jerry. Rick Hawkins, good morning from Atlanta. Mark Willie, thumbs up, Dave and Bruce. Thanks for bringing Offsite and BS as well as right size to the market. Yeah, you know Mark.
Oh yeah, he's great. We've never met, but I tell you, he's very prolific and not sometimes passionate. That's Mark.
Yeah, he definitely is. Andrew Sealy, great story, Bruce. So that was good. Hey, listen, when there's not a lot of questions, that means you're explaining yourself really, really well. So, but we're gonna drive some more questions here in a minute. Let's see what else we got. Anthony Good. Anthony, you caught me. I've been saying his name Good forever, and then finally, out of the blue, he's like, it's actually Goudet. So, Anthony Goudet, Bruce Thompson. Where is the New Jersey project?
Morristown, New Jersey, and it actually hasn't started construction yet. But it's a really great client, Hampshire companies, and they are kind of mixed-use developer. And it's interesting, you're probably seeing it in Connecticut as well, Dave, and I think actually post the events of the last few months, we'll see it more. But, these near or commuter towns really that are on a rail line that are really seeing a resurgence in interest in people living there.
Right.
So, again, it's interesting. They've designed these units around our capability, which again is something that we've really been striving for. So, Morristown is the location.
Love it. So that's right up above Short Hills there. I know it. I think up 24, Morristown, right?
Exactly.
Well, thanks, Anthony. And hey, listen, I was telling even you earlier, Bruce, Anthony's a young guy that wants to be in this offsite market. So I'm just throwing it out there. Anybody listening, this guy has passion. He's been following for a long time. He's worth talking to if you're looking to hire somebody. At least that's my opinion. And that's the last endorsement you're going to get from me, Anthony. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So Bruce, we got a couple other things. We'll get to those in a little bit. Where are we heading now then with your partnership and growth? Tell us a little bit about how the last few months has been for you, because I'm sure everybody's wondering, how the whole COVID-19 may have affected your business and your strategy. Has it slowed you up? And then let's hop into a little bit about, where you're going and what's on the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, we're on the West Coast to really get things cranking out here. It's a fantastic region for accessory dwelling units. It's the only state that we're aware of that has statewide zoning. And in addition to a massive housing crisis and shortage of units, there's something like 3.5 million units that are going to be needed by 2025. And site-built construction and conventional housing is not going to get us there as an industry. So first and foremost, that's what we've been up to out here, getting not only the plants up and running, but then also kind of the builder-dealer channels that are taking it to the retail consumer part of the experience. So it certainly has impacted the last few months, have slowed things down. But on the other side, as we reemerge safely, hopefully, we're starting to see a lot of pent-up demand for this type of application, and even kind of increased demand, if I could say it that way. And in terms of, people maybe not moving quite into the urban core as much as they were, the migration patterns. So suburbs becoming more interesting, I think, not only because of, recent events, but also, millennials, as they start to have kids, they become suburbs become attractive. But so we're seeing a couple drivers, multi-generational family situations. So people coming together based on economics or just demographics, stage of life. Think about people in senior living. Backyards become, an interesting transition point for a whole lot of reasons. It's safer, it's more economical. So that certainly is another driver that we think out of this is going to be, just continue to grow the market, the applications for it. But then I think too, people looking for new income sources. If you can rent the backyard to somebody, that helps either with affordability to be able to afford to buy a home, or also helps supplement income. But what I'll say about all this is the demand is there. And we've had conversations with people that are, like, for example, city government in LA. There's somebody that heads up the ADU initiative. 12,000 building permits in 2018, only 4,000 were constructed. So we think a big part of that is it's just too hard for a lot of homeowners. So what we're doing with offsite construction is really taking a lot of the friction out. And when we think about housing, it's a massive problem. There's not one single solution. But I always break it down into, there's policy challenges, product and process, or process and product. So policy, process, and product. The policy has been taken care of out here for the most part. So now it's about really getting offsite construction in there to really reduce, the whole timeline from 6 to 12 months to, maybe 3 to 4 months overall. And then with that process efficiency, you're bringing a good quality product to the market at a better price point. And then given the right product that we do in terms of making those smaller spaces live larger. So all of that's kind of converging in California. And I think, as we've always seen, things start here on the West Coast and they spread to other parts of the country. So that's our hope.
So what was that stat? You said 12,000 permits were applied for, and how many were built?
Only 4,000. Now, my information is 6 months old, but it was just an eye opener. And again, you'd say, okay, why is that?
Right.
It's challenging. If I'm a homeowner and I have this idea, which is interesting, we're still realizing there's lack of consumer awareness out here that you can do that. This is legal. And, anecdotal research, when we talk to people about what we're doing, they'll, 5 out of 10 people will say, wow, I didn't know you could do that here, which is interesting. So it's new. It's an early market. And early markets are messy. There's a lot of misinformation. It's confusing for people. But even in a city like LA or San Jose, where they have a designated ADU person, they have ADU Tuesday where you can come in and get your permit in one day. For the average homeowner, it's daunting. It's overwhelming. And if anybody's ever built a home, we've built 2. It's just one of the most stressful things you can go through. You have to find a contractor. You have to get the design. You have to then, get it all priced out. Then you get the permitting, financing, major hurdle. And we talk more about that. And then you go through the construction process. And now for many homeowners, they become a property manager, right? So they're almost like a mini developer on a small project. And we find on the construction side, it's a challenge. If I'm a home builder, and this, I tend to gravitate towards larger projects because there's more profit in it. And I think the way the industry has treated ADUs is still kind of this one-off thing, right? Even some of the offsite construction, there's literally hundreds of decisions you can make on interiors, too many different sizes. So a lot of our approach is, can you make it like buying a car?
Right.
Right. You don't go to the car dealership and then, they put it together in your driveway and you can make it a foot longer or a foot wider, and, the crews never work together and there's leftover part. So, getting it down to standardized designs that can be quickly priced out, can be quickly built and put into the backyard. That's what's going to reduce that gap. And, when people, think about that, how many didn't get built, it's because of all of those reasons, and probably a few others, like financing that I highlighted. That's still a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, the number's just huge. So I'm glad you explained that to us. So we actually had a question that leads into some of, and then what I'm going to ask, but Tamara Dunay, hopefully I said that right. What states have zoning for ADUs?
So California, again, to our knowledge, is the only statewide zoning. But if you go around the country a minute, Portland was really, the early market for it. So Portland certainly is very ADU friendly. Seattle is amazingly ADU friendly, and there's talk that's going to go to the state level. Denver, Minneapolis, Arlington County outside Washington, D.C. is very ADU friendly. Montgomery County. I think Philadelphia is kind of coming on, and then Massachusetts, in Western Mass, we've seen zoning. And what's the big city there? Boston. Drawing a blank. Sorry. No, I forgot that. But there's a follow-up thing there. Is one of the challenges is you take the Washington D.C. market, 4 counties, three major counties, and then the District of Columbia. Each one of them has a little bit different zoning for ADUs.
Right.
That's what California did. Is they said, look, we're going to make it statewide, and they even enhanced it in January. They removed the owner occupancy requirement, parking, and they changed the setback to 4 feet. And you can even put up to a 1,200 square foot unit in your backyard if size permits. So I think that's really going to be the next thing, is these cities, municipalities getting in, but then the states, really making it a statewide
code
zoning. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So just so people understand, can you relocate these ADUs if I move? Let's say I sell my house and I move. Can I relocate it?
All depends on how it's built. It's an interesting question. There's, of course, yes is the answer, but you have to build it the right way. But here's what's interesting. Santa Clara, San Jose, City of Los Angeles, San Diego, Fresno, San Luis Obispo, and California, they do allow what they call a mobile ADU. So you're starting to see these worlds kind of blend together of, the tiny home, and you have a park model, which is a version of a manufactured home. You could do a HUD version. It's something that's not on a permanent foundation, can be moved. And that actually brings up a whole nother issue of it could be financed as personal property versus real property, which is a game changer. And when we talk about ADUs, sometimes it's a little bit like a swimming pool. When I go to sell the house, is it an asset or a liability? And if you think about some of the applications for an ADU, if it's an aging parent or family member, it may just be a period of time where you want them there. So this whole notion of something that's mobile, I think, is very interesting. I think there's a massive opportunity to almost lease them as kind of housing on demand, and I think that will emerge over time as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great thought. Even with the MMC and the coalition and what they were doing, they're mostly designed for a permanent structure.
Correct.
But if you install them a certain way, you still got to disconnect plumbing and electrical and wire. It's not, you just don't hook it up to your truck and go.
No, you're not going to do it for a month or two, but 3 to 5 years maybe, or again, if the new homeowner doesn't want it there, you could take it and sell it. And so I don't think it's for everybody, but I think certainly there's a segment of the market where that's going to be attractive.
Well, I know during this whole COVID thing, there's a few times I wish I had an ADU to go crawl into.
For a whole range of reasons, right?
Yeah, not just for, aging in place, right?
That's
All right. So here we go. We have something on the screen from Dan Grant, Dave Bruce. I'm curious how both of you think about the future of ADUs in the post-pandemic environment. Does this change things, etc.? That's from YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah, certainly. I touched on a little bit of this. I think that looking at the applications, from what we're hearing kind of at the retail level, 3/4 of the ADUs in California are for rental. A quarter then is for, a loved one. And so think about coming out of this, there's new economic pressure for sure. Can I rent out the backyard again so I can afford to live in the main home? Or I think for aging boomers, think about this. There's, I think 35 million single family homes in the U.S. Owned by baby boomers right now. Some of those are really kind of stuck, and it's a perfect storm in the housing crisis. But people want to stay in their neighborhood so they could move into the backyard, rent out the primary residence, or let a young family member stay there. So I think you're going to see just through economic pressure, which was already built, is going to increase that. But the other thing, just looking at sheer demographics, right? We know every day 10,000 people are turning 65 in this country for the next 15 years. And it's maybe even a little higher. That's a couple-year-old stat. But, think about where are they going to go? Before all of this, we needed 1 million new senior living units by 2025 nationwide. That was the prediction. And again, now, if you have a family member that's in their 70s, relatively healthy,
right.
Living in the backyard, we're even looking though at things, can you automate some of the capabilities that we have? We're integrating a technology package from a partner, alarm.com, that does monitoring, so that if an aging parent falls, there's slip and fall detection. You can get an alert on your phone. There's sensors in terms of, your parent usually gets up at once in the night, they got up 10 times or they didn't get up. Sensors on the, your medication, taking their meds. So I think, you're going to see, long answer to your question, Dan, sorry. But, there was already this big shift going on that was being driven by a couple forces. I think this just amplifies it and takes it up to the next level. And I start to look just at California. I think there's going to be a market probably for 50,000 ADUs by 2025 annually, just because there's 9 million single family homes here. Each one of them technically is eligible for an ADU.
Yeah, listen, I'm just going to agree with you on this whole thing, Bruce. I think the housing crisis is getting worse, and this is a more affordable solution for some of this. I think, with some of the things that even just happened with COVID and nursing homes, there's a whole lot of factors that are going to drive, I think, ADUs. And like you said, the cost of living, people want to rent out the main house and live in the backyard so they can stay in the neighborhood, stay in the school districts. And they work for a great home office and other things. So I agree. I think this there's only one trend on this, and it's going upwards for sure.
Yeah, if I could just add, I didn't even touch on the remote work. Sorry. Again, being out in Silicon Valley, very interesting. Twitter has said in the last month that their employees never have to come back to the office. Facebook has said half of their employees will work from home. And I think that's going to have a major impact on, in a good way, on the housing crisis, because the average or the median rent out here for a one-bedroom apartment in the Bay Area is $4,200. Yeah, $4,200 a month. And just to keep the right ratio of income to housing, your salary needs to be somewhere around $220,000. So even an entry-level software engineer at $160,000 is not within the right range. So, I think you're going to see a little bit of an exodus out of some of these already taxed, urban areas more into a suburban setting. If I'm working from home, it's much more conducive to have something in the backyard. I wonder at some point if employers start to subsidize that, or insurance companies or healthcare systems. So I think there's going to be a lot of, we're not even aware of right now that are going to come into play.
That's absolutely, I never even thought about that. You're right. I mean, it's probably a much better cost-effective solution for an employer to subsidize that than carry the weight load of a building that takes up, 100,000 square feet of employee space. So that's an interesting take.
Well, I got a few more stats for you. And again, I double check me on these, but to house an employee in an office in the Bay Area, it's between $18,000 to $22,000 a year annual cost. So, cost of real estate, facilities management, all of that. But then here's the other interesting thing out here. Pre-COVID, there were, I think it was 150,000 people a day that commute more than 3 hours. So if you really think about, teachers driving from Modesto, 2 hours one way, and something that could be 4 hours, right? First responders, and then a whole range of other people. So this whole notion of workforce housing and how that could start to change. So I think, look at a crisis, right? What's the famous Chinese, it's two characters, right? Danger and opportunity, and a crisis. And we're seeing now in the last 10 days, another crisis on us. I don't know what's next. Bad luck comes in threes, but I think all of those forces, there's a massive opportunity now to really reimagine housing. But I'm going to come back to, we've got to produce things off-site in a much more efficient way. We've got to standardize it. It can't just be this one-off process. We'll never get there.
My sentiments exactly. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox. Everybody's heard me go on this before, but we got to change the way we're doing building, period. Whether it's modular, panelized, it has to go offsite. It has to become more efficient. And we need technology and young people involved to really take it to the next level. And I couldn't agree. Jennifer put a comment up there. Anybody out there listening, are you seeing ADUs in your neighborhoods, whether they're ADUs, in-law apartments, whatever you want to call them? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And also, are you seeing any zoning issues out there? I know in Connecticut, the biggest issue that they're worried about is collecting their tax dollar. You say, all right, well, it's an ADU, and then you're renting it out for income. So that's one of the things we're always, running into in the New England states is where's the cutoff line between it's for my family versus it's a rental income property, and who tells the town that? So let us know if you guys hear anything. All right, we got a couple more comments here. Tiffany McCall. Do you know Tiffany McCall, Bruce?
I do not. I don't think so.
Tiffany is the chair of the Building Systems Council at the NAHB.
Oh, sure.
Yep. So thanks for joining, Tiffany. Definitely a good person to know. She's up there with Devin Perry all the time, working through and trying to grow the offsite business. And Tiffany's also with RWC Warranty. So they spend a lot of time doing modular and offsite construction warranties. So it's always fun when Tiffany joins. All right. Let's see who else we got here. Jerry McCullough says, wow, super inspiring. George Ryman. George Ryman, good morning from Surefoot Foundations in Phoenix. George and I had a conversation recently. I don't know if you've seen his product, but I think you should. It's a cool thing. You should definitely check it out. It's a concrete-free foundation system. 2 people can put it in 2 days. I think they said there was 40,000 installs, and this isn't a plug for them. I just think it's a really cool product and it's worth talking about. So it could help a lot of people. You don't even have to level the ground, which is cool.
Awesome.
All right. Tamara Dunay again. What can we do in our local areas to move it forward? I'm willing to do legwork in Ohio. Well, hey, Tamara, thank you. We love that. Tamara, tell us a little bit about yourself if you get a chance so we know who you are. But how do you answer that one, Bruce?
And read again, my eyesight is going here. So just local areas. Yeah. Okay. I see it. I think it's education is so critical, and it's interesting to see how certain municipalities have really embraced this and others are really resisting. And I think the ones that are embracing is they're looking on the horizon, realizing this is a tremendous opportunity. But I just think there's a lot of education and going to see things. I think bringing civic leaders to their cities and show them that it's not this scary thing. It's not seeing some of the comments sometimes. Montgomery County last year outside of Washington D.C. looking at some of the hearings that they were having in the comments. There's just a lot of fear of the unknown. One of the comments that I saw from a resident was that ADUs would lead to an increase in human trafficking.
Really?
And again, not to try to trivialize that. I mean, it's a big problem. But I don't know if the ADU per se. I guess you could say that about any structure could lead to anything, right? It could be a meth lab. But so I just think the fear of the unknown, bringing people, showing them, having them talk to other civic leaders that have gone through this. It's still very, very new. And I think it's just exposure and education is what's required. Now, I'll say in the past, you could do things like this, right? So back in, we viewed this as a society as a housing type up until about the 1950s. And there could be a whole other show on why that happened. But, the city of Chicago, for example, I think they call them carriage houses. Mm-hmm. That was legal until the 50s, and then they outlawed it. And Mark knows more about that. That's in his backyard. But there are, I think, again, showing people what used to be possible is another way to kind of help educate.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. All right, let's, speaking of Mark Willie, he's lighting me up here. Carbon-free becomes more and more possible, less commute, less commercial buildings. You want to talk about a guy who's passionate about the environment and smart building? It's this guy right here.
We all want to be Mark.
We do, right?
Yeah.
I want his hair. At least some of it. All right. Let's see who else. All right. So we got Tom Reddy from Synergy Steel. Hey, Tom, thanks for joining us this morning. You may have already covered this, so I apologize. What size range are we talking? And will these units have a standalone house number, et cetera? I'm thinking about utilities, cable, internet, etc. And I made that a little bigger for you, Bruce. Can you read it now?
Thank you. Yeah, I haven't been able to go to eye doctors. I need a haircut. I need a lot of things. So the size footprint that we're working with is 399 square feet up to 1,200, because as I said, California larger units are permissible. But I think, for most ADUs, it's kind of in that 400 to 750, square feet. They're typically not more than 2 bedrooms. I mean, this is, look at the composition of who's living there. It's typically a single or a couple. And I think it reflects the broader demographics in this country right now. 1 in 5 households is living solo. So I think that's a great segment. 1 in 5 is multi-generational. So again, it could be parents or whatever, millennial child in the backyard. So that's kind of the range of sizes. It is a separate structure. So in most cities, it has its own service, for utilities. We've seen the city of Portland, I believe, has a flat rate for utility hookups. That is a barrier in a lot of places. The town that we're in, Grand Rapids, Michigan, you can go through the whole process and get to that last stage, and you've been permitted and everything, and then the city will give you kind of the invoice or what it's going to be to hook up. And
right.
You might not be expecting a $15,000 bill. It just wasn't in your budget. So back to LA, that's how you take some friction out of the process. We're seeing some places, solar where applicable can get you off the grid from the utility perspective. In California, PG&E is kind of the long pole in the tent. We were with some people in Napa 2 weeks ago, and they told us it can be up to 12 months for PG&E to show up and do the utility hookups. So you have both the municipal hookups and then, the power side. And the power can be the longer play, but if you can take it off grid with a battery system, you could avoid that.
Yeah, for sure. And Tom, to add to that, just from experience as well, is a lot of the municipalities are feeling the housing crisis. So they're loosening up some of their old blue laws that they had in place about having ADUs or assisted living apartments or in-law suite. At least that's what we're seeing up and down on the East Coast here. And I think, you still have the utility hookups, you still have the plumbing hookup. The question is, like you said, will the town allow you to tie that into your existing home? Well, septic makes a difference there for a lot of people versus city water, city sewer. And also, does it have to be a separate address? And I think that's where it is different. Where is it an apartment or is it an ADU assisted living structure? And I think that's the variable that a lot of the towns are struggling with, but it's up to the consumer in each area to actually try and, work through that with the town. But I hope they loosen it up. I mean, it's just another way to provide housing, and if people are willing to do it, they should allow them to do it, in my humble, opinion. All right. So we have Dan Grant. Really awesome conversation. Great job, you guys, which is awesome. Thank you very much. Let's see who else we got. Some more comments here. I'm getting a little feedback from you, Bruce, so I'm going to mute your mic. There you go. There's our answer. Scout for investors, working here locally with folks around smart cities, can see future for Offsite around food biz too, would love to brainstorm. Well, what do you think about that, Bruce? We're going to have a brainstorming session with the food industry and Tamara and what she has going on.
Sounds great. Now, I think, challenges healthcare, housing, and food, right? And healthy food.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Tamara, thanks. If you want to just send us a private message in LinkedIn with your contact information, we can schedule a time to talk. Yep, there's Mark again. Chicago Building Code is a lifelong show, Bruce Thompson.
That's what we understand.
Oh, we got a little banner going. Jennifer Crocus Cooper, these guys are having a blast, eh? All right, Mark. Love it. All right, let me skip down to some of these things here. Anthony said, good point about options for utilities are big items too. So good point about off-grid options. Utilities are a big item too. I agree with that. Tom Reddy said, that's great to hear. And then we have Mr. Rick Hawkins in the house today. What's up, Rick? Significant interest in ADU retrofit over garage in metro areas of Georgia, particularly Atlanta. Now, Rick Hawkins has been in this industry for a long time. He's built regular construction. He's been a framer. He's been a modular builder, and he's still building today, and he's in North Atlanta. So, yeah, I mean, what are you seeing, Bruce? I mean, can these actually be placed on an existing structure if you were to take the top of a garage off?
I don't even know if you need to take the top off. We're seeing a lot of garage conversions, and there's a company in Los Angeles, Dwellings, that's really focused on that. And again, in California, you can do both a junior ADU, which I believe those are classified as, and then a detached ADU in the backyard to have 2 units. So I think, there's a lot of underutilized space in this country. If you look at, the baby boomers, and I think the number is, 35 million single family homes. There's a new term I've learned out in California, which is overhoused. It's 1 or 2 people living in a home that has, 3 to 4, maybe 5 bedrooms. So if you can convert part of that space and have separate access, I think that's a great opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's see. We got some more. Hopefully that answers your question, Rick. Tom Reddy said thank you. That was a great answer. And Mark's reaching out to Tamara. Indeed, we call these pops-ups, and they are fun to build and experience. So, Bruce, can you believe it? It's almost an hour, 52 minutes that we've been sitting here chatting away. How much fun is that?
I can go all day, so if everybody wants to stay, no.
All right. Well, listen, you got a bottle of wine. Let's do it. We can go for 4 hours here, but I think I can go 24 hours on YouTube and Facebook. But that may cost me my marriage. I start pulling those off. So
no, don't do that.
Listen, I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything you want to tell us? What are you thinking? What are the future? I think we talked about a lot of things here.
Yeah, I'll just leave it to say, we're going to have 2 events in the next couple of months on each coast. We're going to have an opportunity similar to what we had at IBS, but maybe not so many people in the unit at the same time. I can't believe that we had 3,000 people in 3 days at IBS. But we have a unit going into Northern Virginia with backyard cottages in Champion. And then also out in the Bay Area, there's a unit going to Sunnyvale with a retailer through the Woodland plant. So I think both of those will give opportunities for people on the coast. And then soon in Minnesota, that'll probably come later this summer in the fall, with yard homes in Minneapolis. So stay tuned on that. And we love to always show people, I think it's, you have to see things to really understand it in the built environment. So we're on the way to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been so much fun getting to know you, Bruce, and watching what Urbaneer is doing. And I think that you guys are going to go very far. And I really wish you all the success in the world. And I am dead serious. Let's figure out. I want to see those Jersey units and some of the factories you guys are doing. I'm a big supporter of what you're doing. I'm a big supporter of your wife, Brenda, and your team. So as you can see, we have Modular is magical up there. That's a term that I learned in Pittsburgh from who was that? What house were we at? Blockhouse Residential. And they run together sometimes. So Modular is magical. We can do many things. My soapbox is this. Listen, we can't keep building the same way we've been building. It doesn't make sense. We're the only industry that has not been willing to change. And I think the change is coming because of people like Bruce and others that are out there pushing the industry to change. If people think we're going to keep going down this rabbit hole we've been going down for the last 100 years, I think they're going to lose out this time. It's time for change. We're moving forward. And Bruce Thompson, keep leading the way, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Take care.
All right, everybody, listen. So tomorrow, 1:00, we have building influence with increasing influence with Miles Biggs Ideas. So please join us. Friday, we have no other than Bare Naked Mark Willie on for BS Fridays, Building Science Fridays. Yes, we say bare naked, but he does not show up on here naked, at least not yet. So it's still PG show. And then Saturday's Coffee with Dave. Always send us the coffee mugs. We're getting stuff. We got Tiffany RWC. Send us her mugs. We got Rochester Home send us their mugs. So we will put them on the show, send them to us. And then we're going to start giving them away as promos to everybody to support those that are supporting Offsite. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. Bruce, give me a point, the Dave Cooper point. You got to do this.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. Dave Cooper, Bruce Thompson. We will see you soon. And Bruce, I'm going to see you everywhere, I think.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.